Now, when it comes to the radius, how I was able to ascertain that, and how you can figure this out, if you have this Music Nomad kit or something similar that comes with these radius gauges, they come in different sizes. There's 7 1/4, 12, 10, and 9.5 on one of them. The other one has a 14, a 15, a 16, and a 20-inch radius. So again, you have a couple different options for different radii, I guess is the correct plural. And a quick and easy way to tell what radius you have is you can see, I'm just going to hold up two different ones here. So if you look at the 7 1/4 and the 20-inch radius, one of the major differences is obviously that the 7 1/4, because it's going off of a smaller circle for reference, it's going to be a bit of a tighter curve. And the 20-inch, on the other hand, is quite a bit flatter. So we can actually use this to quickly find out what radius we have on our fretboard. So I'm going to show you on the new neck how I can find that. We can pull up the old neck as well, and we'll see if they actually have the same radius or if they have something different. So let's actually start off with the 7 1/4. So I'm going to use the most curved, the tightest curve radius we have. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to reorient the neck here. And we're just going to use the 12th fret for the purpose of this. And hopefully, let me point the camera down a bit too. Alright, so here's the 12th fret back here. Sorry if the focus is a little off. And I have the 7 1/4 inch radius on top of it. Now, I'm actually going to turn this light off. And I'm going to use another light source, which is this LED flashlight here. And I'm just going to shine the flashlight behind the radius. And you're going to see that there is quite a bit of a gap there. Now, what's good about that is that that tells us that the 7 1/4 inch is too tight of a curve, because you can see the gap is directly in the center, and it kind of fades out until the very edges here and here are actually covered. So basically the corners are touching, but the curve in the middle is just a little bit too tight, which is allowing that gap where light is coming through. So we know that the 7 1/4 inch is not the correct radius. It is too curved compared to the radius of this guitar's fretboard. So now let's switch gears and let's go to the flattest of these, which is the 20-inch radius. And this, I think, is typically used for like classical guitars with really flat fretboards. And here, once again, shining the LED flashlight behind it, you're going to see the opposite problem. So this is too flat, where I can get one side or the other covered, but then as soon as you do that, you're letting the other side come up a bit, and there's that gap on either side. So in this case, if you touch it directly in the center, the sides will let light through. So it's kind of the opposite problem, right? So using this little trick, you can go back and forth and find out which radius. So let's take that 7 1/4 inch one, and let's flip that over to the 9 1/2 inch. Hopefully that shows up on the camera. And let's see. So now that, again, there's a little bit of a gap there. So the 9 1/2, again, there's that gap in the middle, which means that one's too tight. Let's go to the 10 inch and see if that's a little better. Okay, 10 inch is a little bit better. There's still that gap in the middle, which means it's still just a little too tight. Let's go to the 12 inch. Now the 12 inch looks pretty darn close. There's still a little bit of a gap, but if I move it back a little bit where it's not shining on the inlays, that has pretty even coverage all the way around. Now, if we want to check that, we can always go to the next size up, which in this case is 14 inch. And 14 inch looks to be a little too flat, because you can see again, if I go side to side, if I block the center, the light's coming in on either side. So it looks like this is actually a 12 inch radius, based on, again, just using the light as a reference here. Because although there's a tiny bit of a gap here, it's pretty even overall. It's probably not going to be exactly 12 inches or exactly 14 inches. It's going to vary a little bit, because as you sand the wood down, you are slightly taking down the radius, but that is pretty much what we are looking at. So this is a 12-inch radius fretboard. Now we can compare that with the old neck, and again, I'll use the same thing. I'll use the 12th fret as a reference here. Let me move this neck down a bit. You can see the missing inlay here. But we'll do the same thing. So again, we'll start off with the 7 1/4. I'm going just past the inlays here. And again, 7 1/4 is just a little bit too curved. 9 1/2, just a little bit too curved. Let's go to the 10 inch. The 10 inch looks pretty close. Let's go to the 12. And once again, the 12 looks pretty even overall. Maybe even a little bit too flat. I mean, this might be like an 11 inch, but the 10 does look like it's just got a little bit too much of a curve to it. And since 12 is the next size, and it looks like it's pretty even with how it's covering the light there, we're going to guess that it's probably a 12 inch on this one as well. Let's take a look at the 14 just to be sure. And yeah, that 14 is just a little bit too flat in comparison. So the old neck also looks to be a 12 inch radius. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that so you can quickly use light to help you figure out which radius your fretboard is using.